It's Friday, the 29th of May, 2020. The last 24 hours have been just monumental. More different news stories and different things that require our attention have happened. In that short period of time, it really has felt like a week has gone by since just Wednesday night. I was personally up until past 4:30, I guess this morning, once I heard about the tweet that our president sent out with his fascist nursery rhyme, when you start the looting, we start the shooting, or something to that effect. It was a tweet that was so egregious in its instigation of and glorification of violence that even Twitter had to flag it as being against their terms of service, but they couldn't just outright take it down because he's the fucking president and they need to leave his words up so that we can see what's going on. I don't ordinarily give kudos to Twitter, but kudos to Twitter for them for doing that, because they already have been under fire by him for calling him out on saying false things. And the very next day, they said, no, we're going to keep calling you out because what you're saying is dangerous. But beyond that, the National Guard was called in to Minneapolis because of the 3 days of rebellion that have gone on there. I guess it was 2-ish days at that point. I mean, it's an active rebellion. I've never seen or heard of police precincts being actively taken over and burned to the ground. But let's also not forget that among the crowds were definitely agent provocateurs. Or agents provocateur? I don't know. One of those two. In any case, there were some people in those crowds who were there to escalate. And there's a video which I hope you've seen, and if you've not, please seek it out. It is a video of someone breaking windows at an AutoZone, and this person is dressed like, basically he's dressed like what an Antifa person would be dressed like if they came from Central Casting, or if they came from a cop. You know how cops always dress like, whenever cops dress undercover, it's so cartoonishly obvious that it's still cops, right? It's like they're aliens or something who have never seen a person, so they're just kind of doing a jambalaya of different things they see people do. And it sort of reads like a person, but it still stands out so much. You're like, obviously you're undercover. Like, just what are you here for? This person had a high-tech mask and full head-to-toe black and an umbrella to protect from drone footage. Well, I assume to protect from drone footage. But at any rate, this person came in with a tool in their hand that was made specifically for breaking windows and nothing else. Head-to-toe in black, with this space-age fucking respirator gas mask on, umbrella, and a hammer. And that's it. This is a person who came for one purpose and one purpose only. And when they were confronted by actual protesters, he ran away. He almost got into a fight with one of them because they were like, I could tell something's up with you, man. You're not real. And they tried to confront him, and he scuttled off after breaking a bunch of windows in the AutoZone like the insect that he is. Because after that, things did escalate more. And who's to say if windows in that AutoZone ever would have been broken, if not for it having gotten started by someone who was there to basically inflame what was already going on. Because when you have that much anger in the air, justifiable anger, then, hey, it doesn't take much other than a spark to set it all off. And Sparky, you got caught this time. And not only that, but also, a reporter from CNN was arrested on live television by the state police in Minnesota. I've never heard of that happening before in the case of a mainstream news outlet. I'm going to really try and take it easy on everybody but the right this show, but just a quick note for you centrists out there. Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Has been arrested many times. She was one of the few reporters who was out at Standing Rock, and she was arrested for doing so. The only person to date who has been arrested for the killing of Eric Garner is the person who filmed it. Okay, so there is a long history of reporters being essentially taken away from doing their First Amendment duty in an extremely fascistic manner. There's already tons of precedent for this. But y'all didn't care about those people because they aren't what you consider to be credible news sources. Well, as much as you tried to downplay and tell people that they are crazy, when we say that this country is fascist and that if Donald Trump gets elected, we're going to have a fascist presidency. Can you hear me now? More than all that, today, what I want to talk about, especially, besides briefly touching on a few of these issues of the past monumental and potentially historic 24-hour period, I want to talk to you about protecting yourselves. We are entering a period of rebellion and repression. There is no more staving it off. There is no more ignoring it. There is no more hiding our heads in the sand and waiting for the next election. Okay? You can't ignore it anymore. So now it's time to get in the game, and I'm going to tell you a few things that I've picked up to help you get in and stay in the game, especially for those of you who are going to be on the front lines. And I hope that's a good number of you, especially those of you who haven't participated. My name is Logan Grendel, and you have returned to the Focused on Infinity podcast. Let's talk about it. There's just so much looting going on during this pandemic that I really had to come on here and I really had to denounce those vicious, vicious looters who have taken $484 billion out of our fucking pockets while a bunch of us are dying. Now, I know you didn't think I was going to start talking about the protesters, right? You're clearly in the wrong place if you think I'm going to waste a fucking breath criticizing people who are rebelling for their lives. It has become clear for the youth of this country, their votes don't count. Okay, a bunch of people got super involved in several campaigns, but especially the Bernie campaign. I mean, pounded pavements, knocked on doors, made calls. I mean, millions of people put in work on that campaign, only to be told, nope, we're actively going to cancel a bunch of this. In my own home state, before it was overturned, Governor Cuomo actively canceled the primaries for no fucking reason. And in fact, it was overturned by the courts because they're like, no, bro, you can't do that. We already got one fascist. We don't need another one running New York. And I hope you get pissed off when I call Andrew Cuomo a fascist because you need to. You need to actually look at what that dude is doing. He botched the response to COVID-19 horrendously. He has not let anyone out of the jails that are COVID hotspots, nonviolent people. He has done essentially nothing but look good and speak well. And I'm going to call him out every single time I get a chance because I'm sick of people being so superficial, they don't know how to look at a fucking paper or actually look at some policy and see what's really going on rather than just being entranced like a deer in the headlights just because some average-ass white dude who's just a legacy kid speaks to them. Y'all can get used to fucking anything. It amazes me. Anyway, so much is happening right now, and the fascist turn of our country, and as I said before, and we'll say again, the machinery of America was already fascist, and now it is in the hands of a fascist. And you know how I feel about CNN. I don't watch CNN. I don't even hardly share CNN videos because I don't think they deserve it. I think they have done more to damage public discourse than a lot of the other so-called, fake or propaganda news sites. The reason that our president can get away with calling them fucking Lugenpresse is because of the things that they hide or they won't talk about, right? You want to talk about income inequality. You want to talk about the things that are actually facing the most of the people of this country. They won't touch it. You want to talk about the voter suppression that happened during the primaries. They won't touch it. You want to talk about the bombing of Yemen that we're doing. You want to talk about the upward wealth extraction that is happening. You want to talk about any of the material conditions of the people of this country that there are donors who give to CNN they don't want to talk about it. You're not going to talk about it. It's not outright lies that you have to watch out for from a place like CNN. It's the stuff that they won't talk about and the stuff they won't cover. And that is media malpractice. That's the definition of media malpractice. Leaving out the most important things that are the most important to the people that you're supposed to be serving news to. So I'm on the record that I don't fuck with CNN. And I think you shouldn't either. But they are what everybody everyone from your Republicans who will hate watch it to your resistance Democrats who think it's the only place to really get news. And y'all control everything, right? Between the Republicans and the Democrats, you guys control everything. You have all the money. You have all the power. You have all the access to these news sources. So you're vastly overrepresented in terms of what is important to you. CNN speaks directly to you, and so they get to be called one of the, you can't call it the paper of record because it's not a paper, but you know what I mean. On live television, a reporter was arrested and taken away. And when I say on live television, I mean the dude had to give up his microphone to get arrested. He asked why he was being arrested. They wouldn't tell him. And they arrested a couple of other people. And in the end of that whole thing, the camera got left on the ground, still rolling, because they had arrested all those people. If you don't understand why that's terrifying, I feel like maybe you need a defibrillator because something about you has gone dead. They were not doing anything wrong. They were complying with all the orders that they were being given, even though that shouldn't be, having to comply with unlawful orders, I've mentioned before, there's no law that says you have to comply with any unlawful order. And that counts for also military people as well. You don't have to comply with orders that are unconstitutional or unlawful. And I don't consider law a standard for what's right. So anyone tells me to do something that I think is not right, I'm not going to do it. I don't care if it's the law or not. Right? And I think that's a lot more important. But anyway, on live television, they arrested this dude and his crew with no reason. That's fascism 101. Now, is there a precedent for it? Yes. Has it happened before in other circumstances? Yes, it has, as I mentioned earlier. But for that to happen on CNN, on the brazenness that it took them to do that is just, it's unmitigated. It's unprecedented. And we all know how the president feels about CNN as well. They are the primary recipients of his fake news claims. Reminding you again, fake news is the same word as Lügenpresse, which is what Hitler called his version of the fake news. People who were giving news that was against what he was doing. I've been telling you this dude has been following the Hitler playbook since he got elected. Everything he's done, every single thing. And the only book we know that he has read is a rare book of Hitler's speeches. So now, my first thought last night, the second I saw that tweet, I was like, well, I'm not going to sleep now. I stayed up watching the Unicorn Riot live feed. Shout out to Unicorn Riot for on-the-ground reporting. Though I really wish they would do a better job of making people protect their identities, because what are you doing at a protest giving an interview? Don't do that. Don't fucking do that. Right? And I say that lovingly, like, don't do it. Don't fucking do it. It's dumb. Because they might not get you now, right? But when they have whatever bots or FBI agents or CIA agents or whoever looking over the footage from all that stuff, you're going to get spotted, friend. And then they will show up with a warrant at your house. Before I get too far afield, you know what? Let me get right into it. Safety. Okay, there's no more question as to whether or not we're going to need extreme tactics. Because the repression is coming. The repression that we've all feared might happen, it's coming. It's already here. It's already here. And they're going to use the rebellions that are happening right now in Minneapolis, but are expanding. Because there's marches and protests in many, many cities right now. And shout out to everybody who is on the ground right now. This I'm making this for you and for all of those who will be joining. And I saw and shared a meme that said something to the effect of, it had someone sitting there plucking petals, you know, the old, they love me not. And it was dystopia, utopia, dystopia, utopia. And we're at that choice point right now. We're there. There's no more waiting to get back to normal. We're there. So people often think that moments of repression and rebellion are separate things, right? But they're not. They always happen, historically speaking, they always happen at exactly the same time. And revolution only happens when the rebellion outweighs the repression. So, a first question, before I tell you how to protect yourself, is, are you ready? Are you ready to actually stand for something? Are you ready to actually put your body, your money, your time, are you ready to actually put your shoulder to the wheel and get this future that we know we need and we know we want and we know we deserve? None of us have been living the way we should be living. And there have been ways that the lockdown from COVID-19 have allowed us to see that. I know it's been weird, but I know in my heart that a lot of you have found a lot of things that you have loved about getting to choose more of what you do with your time and with your day. And there is an authenticity to it that we never would have seen if things had just gone on. And that authenticity is one of the things that is bringing this rebellion to the fore. And now we're about to find out what we're all made of, what we're really all made of. So you have two choices. Are you going to support the rebellion? Or are you going to stand aside for the repression? Because if the repression starts and it continues, mark my fucking words, you can kiss November elections goodbye. That's not going to happen. Any excuse. He'll find a fucking excuse. He's not going to leave. And even worse, if he does, by some miracle, lose the election, he's still not going to leave. And he is going to actively call, as he has done many times, actively call for his people to rise up violently and start their rebellion. So the time is now. This is a revolutionary moment, people. And there's no standing aside. You have to choose a side. Where do you stand? Right? I don't expect everybody to be out there on the front lines. I'm not out there on the front lines, under the current circumstances at least. Most people don't need to be on the front lines. That's something that is always important to remember in any struggle, right? There has to be strong support for the front lines in every way possible. Everything from jail support to food, all forms of mutual aid, sending pizzas to protests, all that kind of stuff is vital. And in addition to making sure not to take our feet off the levers of the existing structures. Because while we fight for the genuine rebellion, we also have to not give up any ground, never concede any ground on any front. Not one step back. And those tweets add up. Don't let people tell you that internet activism doesn't matter. It matters. The conversations that are going on, and I see you. I see all of you who have been posting about George Floyd and the general situation of white supremacy. I don't care what anybody says. We need the support of white people. We need to be standing shoulder to shoulder. I welcome that love. That's what I want to see. In fact, anyone who I have not seen posting something about what's going on, bye. And I'm not sorry. Go fuck yourself. The world's on fire and you can't interrupt the constant feed of your last meal and workout and trip. Well, I guess there haven't been any trips recently, but you know what I mean. You can't interrupt a steady stream of your own narcissism to stand up for what is perhaps the most brutal fucking murder we've seen on camera ever. That was like watching somebody get taken out by a boa constrictor. And you can't, oh yeah, it's just, I gotta stay out of this. Like, no, I know my uncle wouldn't like this, so I don't want to post about it. I don't want to get all political. Could at least send a text, an email to some of your black friends. Say something. You're useless. Go fuck yourself. I know where you stand. And you're just a coward. You're a coward for not just admitting it. Not just admitting that you are kind of racist. Or that the racist people in your life matter more to you than people who you called friends and lovers. Fuck that. And fuck you. But on the other hand, especially for those of you who know, look, that's taking a risk. And people say that making a tweet or whatever is not making a risk. Making a post on Facebook or Instagram is not taking a risk. Are you kidding me? People lose their jobs. People get harassed. They get doxxed for speaking their mind all the time, all day long. Okay? Everybody's afraid of putting the wrong thing up on Twitter now because, as I've said before, the internet has kind of become like the collective unconscious made flesh. And so to actually put out there something that is meaningful and important and is about like healing the world and the structures from which sometimes you benefit manifestly, that's courageous. It's not as courageous as being out there on the front lines with the riot cops, but it's still courageous. And I don't think it's, just giving people a cookie for doing the bare minimum. No. I believe that we should applaud each other for every good thing we do. Praise is not limited. There's no limited amount of love I can give out for people who are doing the right thing, great and small. So, to the front line, folks. Let's start with digital safety, because that's not only important at the moment, but going to become increasingly so. Step 1, if you can afford it, get a VPN for your computer and for your phone. There also are free VPNs that work well. I use Orbot on my phone, and I highly recommend that. Though they can track your phone by a number of different methods. So that's only good for like your internet, the things that you're doing on the internet, your browsing. It's not good for your actual physical safety, but for your digital safety, a VPN is fantastic. Just a brief primer on what it does is it bounces where your signal is coming from to different places. So it's impossible, or at least extremely difficult, to find out where the source is coming from, right? So they can't directly trace it back to you, and you can appear to be somewhere that you are not. That's step 1. Step 2, stop using regular text messaging. I mean, for just the average thing, feel free, go ahead. But not for anything important, and definitely not for organizing. Do not organize by text. Now, Signal. Use Signal. It's encrypted text messaging, right? And to my knowledge, no one has had to give up their Signal info. And Signal has not turned over info to any law enforcement agency with which to indict someone. That has happened with WhatsApp, though. WhatsApp is supposed to be end-to-end encryption, but it's owned by Facebook. Facebook, look, let's just say it plain. Facebook is the toolbook of the empire. Mark Zuckerberg is the young Lex Luthor we have always feared and knew was going to come out one day. He just is. He deserves no praise. He deserves only condemnation and will receive only damnation. He has said many times that he supports the right wing. He hangs out with deep right-wingers, people in government. What he wants is power. And he has created what every government wants, a way to track and surveil everything about their people granularly and constantly. He knows what kind of mood you're in. He knows who you're fucking. He knows what you want to buy. And he is willing to give that information to the government at any time. If you even have Facebook Messenger on your phone, you're being fucking surveilled. You should not have Facebook Messenger on your phone, especially not if you're a lefty and you're trying to do some activism. Take it off there right now. Just get rid of it. Don't make excuses. All right? Get rid of Facebook Messenger. Find a different way. Do you really need to? Look, when I left Facebook, I had 2,000, between 1,500 and 2,000. And I was like, what am I going to do without being able to contact all those people? And obviously, before I left, I made sure to get the contact info of people who I wanted to get in contact with, et cetera, et cetera. Put up a few messages. People reached out to me, whatever. But the long and short of it was I lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of contacts by deleting Facebook and Facebook Messenger. And you know what? The quality of my life actually improved. I was communicating more intentionally with the people who I actually wanted to be communicating with. not just for the next party or, because I needed to do some photos, or I actually had to be mindful and present with my communications. And also, hey, I was not being consistently surveilled. Now, I still have Instagram, right? And Instagram doesn't have the same kind of tracking and surveillance as Facebook and Facebook Messenger, but I'm aware that it does. And my current plan, which I'll probably talk about in another episode, is collect my people from Instagram and get off Instagram, to use it for what it's worth and then leave. Because I don't want to support anything having to do with Mark Zuckerberg. I've already managed to get rid of all of Bezos's properties out of my life, except for Amazon Web Services, which we'll talk about. Actually, that brings me to, don't use Google Chrome. Google Chrome tracks the hell out of you. All the websites you're going to, it's keeping everything. It's keeping it all. Don't organize on Gmail. Now, where you can go, Proton Mail. Proton Mail is encrypted end-to-end, and also it's hosted in, I believe, Switzerland, or some country where they don't have any history of extradition or taking part in, outing people because some government asked them to. Only say things for which you can be potentially called a terrorist, right? And that's a lot of things. Don't forget how broad their definition of terrorism is, unless it involves the fucking cops or the military, right? Especially black folks. The first thing they did, which again, you don't need to say, I am a racist and a fascist when you come into power, if the first thing that you do is create a term black identity extremist and put that on the terrorist watch list. That's not a thing. It doesn't even exist, right? But you knew they were doing that because they knew they were going to start cracking down on black folks in some way or other, or that eventually the conditions that they would create would cause a rebellion like we're seeing right now. And they wanted to use it later. It's a surprise tool that will help us later. That kind of thing. Proton Mail. In fact, if you need to hit me up for any reason, focusedOnInfinity@protonmail.com. Hit me up for basically any questions. If you start taking a lot of my time, I might ask you to join my Patreon, but honestly, I am dedicating my life to trying to make the world better. And if you have a question that could help us do that, hit me up. Seriously. Okay. So, Firefox is a better browser to use than Google Chrome. Firefox is all about not tracking you. The search engine they use is DuckDuckGo, which also is committed to not tracking you and not keeping your information. Now, Firefox does keep all your preferences and stuff like that in Firefox, but it's not like Chrome, where all that information is going somewhere only the gods know. Again, don't organize on Facebook. Okay? It should already have been a tip-off. Facebook is how right-wingers, hardcore right-wingers, organize. Private Facebook groups for police and for military and other just straight up like white supremacist groups are some of the darkest and most racist and fucked up places there are on the internet at all. I've only seen little glimpses into it for obvious reasons, but it is dark, y'all. It's really, really dark and terrible. And that is where they're doing their planning. So we know that Facebook and its owner are down to clown with the Klan. So if we organize on there, there's a good chance that they'll be able to, they're surveilling it, that they'll be able to send people to literally spy, send people who could actually do something to harm your safety. In fact, while I'm at it, just get off Facebook now. Just get off Facebook. And I'm telling you this as someone who has done it. Again, I'm not telling you to do something that I have not done myself. You don't need Facebook. You're addicted to it. I guarantee you are, because I was addicted as fuck to that. You just get on there and look, they make it so that it's addictive. They make it to give you those dopamine rushes. They make it so that, the people who you know and love can reach you. And so you actually, because look, I don't believe that what happens online doesn't happen. People who say things like, oh, that's just online, it's not real. That's a fucking lie. Everything that happens everywhere is real. Like, it's just dumb to think otherwise, right? You're not thinking it through. Okay. And yes, it is of course more gratifying to sit and talk to somebody in human space, but getting to talk to people who you can't be near at the touch of a button, that's amazing. That's literal magic, right? Just imagine being in the 1600s and you're in England and someone you know has just gone off to the new world and you want to talk to them. Yeah, good fucking luck. A month, 2 months, 3 months before you get some word that they are alive or not. Not even that long ago. I mean, the 1800s, the early 1900s, right? The telephone did a lot, but everyone didn't have a telephone at first. Think about how recently in human history that we have been able to, with a device that fits in our hands, communicate with people anywhere on the planet that has service, certainly. That's fantastic. And I don't mean to undercut how important Facebook has made itself to the way we live our lives. It has brilliantly integrated itself into all these other apps, and you can just sign in with your Facebook and all that. And it was a pain in the ass having to just sign into everything with emails and remember passwords. I never remember passwords, but I did it because it was the thing that you should do. And I'm telling you that now, especially if you're going to get into any kind of frontline activism. And for those of you who are planning on doing frontline activism or participating in rebellions, if you have Facebook on your phone and you bring your phone, you're fucking up everybody else around you. Okay? Having Facebook and Facebook Messenger on your phone and having it at a protest is basically like not wearing a mask, right? Maybe other people are protecting themselves and trying to protect you, but you're not doing your part. You could be the hole in the boat. On the note of phones, do not bring your main phone to a protest. Write in Sharpie permanent marker on your flesh any numbers you need to know, right? Make it like 3 numbers. A lawyer or some legal defense that you know of, a friend who's not going to be at the protest, a family member, and you're good. That's it. Make sure to take some coins, take a little cash so you can make a call. Take your Metro card. Don't take any personal stuff. And your phone is the most important item of personal stuff that you should not take. They use it to track you. They also can compel you to open it, to unlock it for them. And then everybody in your network is compromised. All that work of organizing is undone. Okay? So seriously, don't bring your actual personal phone. Get a burner phone. Get a burner just for that purpose. And when I say just for that purpose, I mean that. Okay? Don't use it for anything else. The only numbers that should ever be on there are the 3 numbers that you have written on your arm. That's it. Another thing, as much as we've all gotten used to texting, voice over text. Okay? Voice over text when it comes to activism, especially frontline activism. Call somebody, have a conversation. Take notes on pen and paper if you need to. Okay? Don't take your notes on Google. I know how easy it is to use Google Drive. Use it for your homework. Use it for your writing. Use it for whatever you want. Just don't use it for organizing and activism. And whenever possible, talk to someone. Don't text them. Talk to them. You won't have to worry about miscommunications. Even being an excellent user of emoji, if I do say so myself, there are often miscommunications over text. And when you're talking about organizing and activism, you don't want any ambiguity, right? Now, Signal also has a calling feature that is encrypted in addition to the texting, and actually video chats it also does. By the way, I'm not being paid by anyone to endorse any of the services or products I'm endorsing. I'm saying this because it is what I believe to be true. Quick sidebar. I'm not doing ads. I'm not going to do it. I definitely need dough and certainly hope that you will join the Patreon so that I can continue doing this. But I will either do it based on the funding of people or I will not do it at all. I will not start doing ads, and I don't care what they're for. I don't care how good the company is. I will occasionally big up my friends' companies or whatever, but I'm not taking money for that. I think advertising is what is wrong with journalism and with podcasting, even the good podcasts, right? I think that we should be counting on each other for our funding. And I think that we should start thinking of people who provide us information and news sources as something that we're willing to put a little coin into. And now that we have these digital means, right? It's not like you have to buy a daily news every day for $1 to support the daily news. You can give a couple bucks a month and just spread the word. And then you have 1,000 people giving a couple bucks a month. Bam. That's enough that you can keep your sources of information and joy sustainable. I don't mean just for news. I mean also for artists, for entertainers, people creating any kind of content that you appreciate. I will do a whole other episode on this, but I believe Patreon and OnlyFans, as funny as that sound, are the future. They're the future, I think, of social media and the future of the way a lot of people are going to be making their money and be able to provide their content without oversight and provide their fans exactly what they want and need. Okay, next bit of safety. Make all of your actions cross-cultural. And I know that's not always possible. So, this one comes with a lot of caveats. And I know there's actually a lot of black folks that just don't want to fucking see white people right now. And, I hear you. I feel you. But in every way that we can, because look, the truth is all our struggles are connected. Capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, right? They're the big three. And for like 90% of the people in the world, they are a combined problem. Some of them are a problem for all of us. Shout out to black trans women who have basically hard mode in life. But we need solidarity. And as a matter of safety, making all those actions cross-cultural means that you can't be accused of being a black identity extremist, or you can't be falsely accused of being something that is for whites only. And crossing over from digital into in-person, if it is a mixed group of people, and you have a bunch of racist cops who are used to beating ass on black folks, well, they're either going to have to think twice, or they're going to have to fuck up some white kid that looks like it could be their kid. And that's part of the psyop that we need to be playing against them. Because psyops are happening. They're just not being played by the left. We're not doing it. We're not doing our job right now. We should be making it really difficult for cops and for people who work in government. We should be making it really difficult for them to live their lives unmolested. And I'm not talking about doing anything physical to them, not at all. I'm just saying making them uncomfortable. If you know a cop and you haven't said something to them on the sneak, like, hey, did you kill anybody today? Something like that. Just a good little needling. Just needle them. And if you're someone that they love, don't put yourself in danger. We all know that, again, 40% of cops that we know of are domestic abusers. So I'm not suggesting that you put yourself in danger. But I'm talking about, a friend that you have, a relative that you have, somebody who works for a company like Amazon. And I'm not talking about as a factory worker. I'm talking about an executive, somebody who works at Aramark or at Geo Group, somebody who works for some industry that is fucking us up. Don't just ignore the fact that they work for the empire. Somebody who is going with their fucking toolkit to screw in lug nuts on the Death Star every day. You better at least say something to them. Come on. Work those psyops like they're doing on us, sending that cop in to break those windows at the AutoZone. Again, like I said earlier, the game's already on. We're already fighting. There's no choice of whether or not to fight. Okay? That's past. going back to safety, let's switch from talking about digital safety to in-person safety. And we'll start with at protests. Number 1, when you go to a protest, have a squad. Not a huge squad that you can't keep track of. No more than 4 or 5 people. That's your squad. And even within that squad, have one particular buddy who you always will know where they are at all times. And I know how hectic things get. And sometimes, you'll have your fire sign friends that just want to run around and go with the flow. But have one buddy that you're going to keep track of. That's vital. Both for their safety and for yours. And also that if they go too far, if they start doing something that you haven't agreed to, you can literally pull them aside and be like, no, this is what we're not about to do. Right? And that way, if everybody's watching out for each other in that way, we can manage the level of escalation. And that brings me to the next part. When you go into any protest from now on, okay, from here on in, we're not talking about like the Women's March or like the Science March, the Climate Change March, where it's just a parade where you have a permit and the cops are there and they're smiling, et cetera, et cetera. From here on in, we're talking about protests. We're talking about actions. And most of these actions, there will not be permits. The police will not be happy to see you there, and they will be actively trying to make arrests at very least. So be aware of what level of escalation you and your squad are going to go to. And talk about it. Obviously, talk about it in person, not on any of the methods I talked about earlier. Don't do it. But talk about it, and talk about it frankly. I'm going there and I just want to protest and I want to chant and I want to raise awareness. Okay, great. I want to go there. I want to break windows. I want to fight cops. Okay, well, I cannot legally endorse that idea. But if that's what you want to do, talk to your friends about it and be ready. This is not a decision you want to make day of, moment of. And also, this is a decision that you should talk about, because if you're not in good health, you're not in like physical condition to literally run away if you have to, that's not a role for you, and that's okay. One of the great things you learn from D&D, right? It doesn't matter what your strength is, your dexterity is, your intelligence is, et cetera, et cetera. None of that matters. It matters what you are personally bringing to the table. It's one of the reasons that I equate often a birth chart with a character sheet. It just tells you your skills and abilities and your challenges. Doesn't say what you're going to do. Doesn't say how successful you'll be at doing it. Just gives you some idea of where your strengths lie and what you should lean on. Know your strengths, right? For me, I know that right now my best role is as a disseminator of information, a creator of art, and otherwise supporting everything that's going on right now. I spent the past 5 or 6 years, at least, I don't remember exactly, but every single day spending hours, 2 hours minimum, on learning about the world around us and compiling information so that I have it at my fingertips. I've had the luxury of doing that. I've been walking around a lot with dogs, and I can listen to podcasts. I can listen to ebooks, right? I can get that information. I don't have kids and I don't have a partner, so I can spend that time educating myself, and I do. Now, in the past, I've had other skills and when I was younger, I definitely would have been a foot soldier, no question about it. But that's not my role for right now, at least with things as they are. And that's all I'll say about that. But anyway, yes. Know your strengths. Know what you're prepared to go to. Know what you're prepared to do. Know the level of escalation that you are okay with. And make sure your squad is okay with that as well, right? Another thing, for safety in person, mask up. You should be doing that anyway every fucking second you're outside. Because as much as we need to do these actions, COVID-19 is going to proceed unabated. This summer is going to be tough, maybe less bad for some reasons that are not, yet scientifically proven, right? But when winter comes back, I'm telling you, the second wave of this is going to be terrible. We haven't even finished the first wave, which is going to get worse because all of the states opening up. And unfortunately, a lot of these protest actions, if people are not wearing masks, which they should be, are going to cause more cases of COVID-19. Don't forget that. But the reason you're masking up in these cases is for your safety. No face, no case. Don't forget, no face, no case. If they can't prove it's you, right, then you can fight it. Also, fight the urge to stand out. No matter what you like to dress like on a day-to-day basis, anything about you that is identifying ordinarily, hair color, tattoos, piercings, don't make it visible, right? If you have a visible face piercing in an area that, well, hopefully your whole face should be masked except for your eyes, right? But even that, like, if I were going to be doing frontline actions, I would skip wearing makeup that day. Nothing identifying. You should all wear the same color, black, and mask up. And I mean mask up, like I said, you should be wearing a mask when you're outside anyway. I wear a mask all day as long as I'm outside. But definitely wear a mask for these protest actions. I mean, we've all sort of known that like the whole 6 feet social distancing rule is a little bit arbitrary, right? But now it's coming out. I heard this the other day, and it is as yet unconfirmed what the full distance is, but 6 feet is actually insufficient distance to protect you from contracting COVID-19 from somebody who is maskless, especially if you are also maskless, right? So everything that we're doing right now, like people going running, and they're not wearing masks and they're jogging and they jog by each other and they don't jog right by each other, but for some reason, we all seem to have forgotten that 6 feet should extend laterally instead of just, fore and aft of us, right? Like, it should be 6 feet all around you. But yet, when we're passing each other, we definitely pass within 6 feet all the time. Anyway, mask up, okay? Now, for tear gas, you want to use Maalox. 50% Maalox, 50% water is the best solution that I have heard for rinsing eyes. Not milk. Don't use milk. Use Maalox. Now, this is going to sound dramatic, but since we're talking about this, let's talk about it. In your house, there are several ways this could go where someone could come to your house. And I'm not saying that to freak you out. I'm saying that because look, they just fucking grabbed somebody from CNN and took them to jail on live TV. You think they give a shit about you? You think they care about coming to get some leftist out of their apartment? Of course not. Of course not. Right? So when it comes to level of escalation, be prepared for what that means for you at home. And I'm serious, right? Do you not answer the door? Do you escape out the back? Is there a fire escape? Do you have a back door? If you had to escape someone trying to come into your house to get you, could you do that and how would you do that? If you could not do that, what would be your other options? I cannot condone violence, but I personally think that everyone has the right to defend themselves, especially in their home. If you want to know anything else I think about that, hit me up. I was thinking about something I said earlier about Walking Dead, the show The Walking Dead being like one of the great fears of the time. And the reason that it was so popular is because it was, based on everyone's fear of people coming to get them and that sort of thing. And I think I've changed my mind. I don't think The Walking Dead was so popular because it was something that everyone's afraid of. I think it's popular because it's what the upper middle class and above are most afraid of. Rioting and so-called rioting scares them more than watching someone be choked to death by a police officer. And keep in mind, not one private home was damaged. Not one. Okay? It's not like these people were going house to house, dragging people out, doing God knows what. And yet everybody is terrified and calling these people animals and like they always do. And why is that? Because people who have a little bit of capital own a home. There's nothing more frightening to them than somebody coming and taking their stuff. We have been so thoroughly propagandized that even the baby capitalists, people who just own a home and you're not even really a capitalist just for owning a house. Okay? That's like a drop in the fucking bucket. That's nothing. That could be taken from you in a heartbeat by any banker that really wanted to put a little bit of law into it. Or any governmental agency that wanted to say that's not your house anymore. Make no fucking mistake. What happened to George Floyd could happen to you at any moment. The only reason it has not happened to you yet is because no one has seen fit to make it happen to you yet. You have not become a target for whatever reason. You are not safe. And the amount of bootlicking that I see behind all this, it disgusts me. Because they would do that to you the second they needed to. The second. You being a homeowner doesn't protect you. You being a white male homeowner does not protect you. If they want your shit, they will take it. Okay? So, no. It's the capital class and the professional managerial class who views themselves as potential entrants into the capitalist class that are most afraid of all those unwashed, grubby hordes coming towards them taking their shit. You never hear in The Walking Dead about how it all started. And of course, at a certain point, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Sure, I get it. But that show, the more I think about it, is all about the restoration of the society we have now. And some examples of society that is rebuilt are better than we have now and are a little bit more like, honestly, what I would like to see in the world, sure. But, Alexandria, getting a little deeper into the world of The Walking Dead, that's the model that they were trying to go back to. The house, the white picket fence, a nice suburban house and family, doing some gardening. And even that version of it was better than what we have now because there was farming and people were actually taking care of each other. It's actually like, an anarchist communist commune, even though they would rather be dead than admit something like that, right? I think it's a little bit funny. Even a show created by ultra-capitalist people, their model of society ends up being what anarchists and communists and socialists have been talking about for years. But I digress. It's like a digression of a digression. But no, that's the thing. And Tucker Carlson, that absolute waste of carbon, he said the quiet part loud, as he often does. He said, rioting, looting, is the most scary thing. He said the rioting and the looting is much scarier than the murder. Why? Because it more threatens social order. It more threatens capital. And that's what this is all about. I'm going to start wrapping up here, but just think about this. If this wasn't about capital, why wasn't the National Guard called in immediately to arrest the cops who killed George Floyd? Why hasn't the National Guard been called in to provide food, to provide PPE? Why haven't any of these governmental agencies been employed to directly bring people things they need so they don't need to leave their houses, like they've done in other countries? Why is it that they only show up when stuff is threatened, when buildings are threatened? If that does not, above all things, reveal to you that the true nature of capitalism is rapacious and does not care about humans, I don't know what will. Because it's not even an opinion. It's a flat statement of fact that they did not and will not do anything on a mass scale with that kind of deployment unless it's to protect stuff. Never to protect people. They're not there to protect people. Because guess what? People weren't getting hurt. People were not hurting each other. As much as they will tell you on most mainstream news outlets that it's rioting and it's bedlam and it's chaos, whatever, people are taking care of each other. And you know what anti-fascists mostly do? Mutual aid. Feeding people. making gardens. Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? Think about it just basically, right? Who is doing more for you right now? Somebody who is on the ground in Minneapolis fighting to prevent anyone from being killed by a police officer ever again? Or Chuck Schumer, who is sitting in his mansion somewhere, waiting around for the next supposed vote that he's either not going to call or is going to vote down if it involves giving people too much. Stop defending people who don't give a fuck about you. That goes back to something I said earlier about culling my friends lists on Instagram and in other places. Listen, one of the people who I've called one of my best friends for most of my life, I haven't heard from them on race. I haven't heard from them. We talk pretty frequently, but they haven't checked in on me amidst any of this, and we've been friends for a very long time. And you know what? It's like Angela Bassett says in Strange Days. Something to the effect of, I love you more than you know, and I guess that makes me pretty stupid. But if you don't do the right thing when it comes to race, you mean nothing to me. As a spell of love for myself, I cast a ward against all those who would not stand up to prevent me from dying and who wouldn't speak up even at this vital time. You're proving to me by your action and or inaction that you don't care about my life, no matter what we shared. And until that changes, you can fuck yourself forever. And I don't feel sad about it. I feel good about it because as much as you love anyone, you've got to love yourself. And I don't mean that in that toxic, idiotic way where it's like, you can't love anyone until you love yourself. No, I don't believe that. I believe that some of us have a harder time with self-love than we do with giving out love. I don't think it's good, but I think it's the truth. And I also don't think that love can grow in isolation, right? But what I'm saying is, if someone is proving to you that they would not fight for you when it actually mattered, nothing they do in the good times matters. And you should cut them off like you were snipping the tag off of a new garment. Cut them right off. And they don't deserve an explanation. If they come to you and they ask for your forgiveness and they ask why or what's going on, if they show that kind of interest, if you want to explain it to them, then please do. But if you don't feel up to it, if you feel like they should have done it anyway, that's on you to decide. Don't feel bad about cutting them off. And I don't care who they are or how long you've known them. I don't care. Because that's one of the things that I think, look, a lot of black folks who just never become close with white folks have an easy time being like, yeah, fuck white people. And I don't condemn anyone for saying that. But you got to understand, for me, 85% or more at some times of the people with whom I've been close, just because of where I went to school and where I live and the things that I've gotten into, have been white people. So I get it. It's not white people. It's whiteness. It's white supremacy. And by refusing to stand up against white supremacy, you have chosen the side of whiteness against me, your supposed friend. And for that, you mean nothing to me. There is now a hole in the world where you used to be, and it's a hole I have no interest in looking in. Stay gone. Now, I believe in forgiveness, but look, as a witch, as a practitioner of magic, a ward is the most important thing that you can do. And even more important than the ward you put up is the banishing that you have to do first. And amidst the digital safety and the physical safety that you need to do, don't forget, before you go into any protest action, take a moment, call it a spell, call it a meditation, call it a prayer, call it whatever you want to. But take a moment to remember your purpose, to really sit with the idea of what you're doing. Take a moment to sit in your power. Take a moment to really appreciate the fact that what you are doing is going to have lasting historical effect. That you are doing the work of the world in healing itself. Because this isn't just about George Floyd. This isn't just about white supremacy. This isn't just about, this is about everything. This is about the world healing itself. And we are part of that system. As I've said before, we are part of the world's systems. And every system that fails is because we allowed it to fail. If it fails and we tried, great. That happens. To use COVID-19 as a metaphor, let's say, white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, that's COVID-19, and it's attacking the earth, and that's our body. Now look, maybe there's just too much viral load that we can't fight it off. Maybe we will succumb to it. Maybe we will lose. But if we are the body's defenses, we are the white blood cells, we are the immune system, it is our job to fight tooth and nail. It is our job to fight on every corner, in every chat room, at every dinner table. It is our job to fight. Whether or not we believe we will win. It is our job to fight, not because we think we are going to be victorious, but because we have no choice, because it is what we must do. It is our true will. It is our great work. There is no greater work than rebelling against the repression that is coming. There's no greater work. There's no greater purpose. There is no greater purpose than helping people get free for the first time in human history. And that is a task, unfortunately, that we have been saddled with. Even if we are not going to be victorious, and I believe that we are. But even if we're not, this is a game of attrition, and we're going to make them work for every inch. That's going to bring us to the end of this episode. As you may have seen if you follow me on Instagram, I've been doing a lot more art content and just content in general. I found some great new sources, and I've got a bunch of plans in the works. Please do follow me on Instagram at FocusedOnInfinity, on Twitter at WatcherInfinite, and most importantly, please do consider supporting my Patreon. I have levels everywhere from $2 a month to $100 a month, whatever you can afford. And I have some interesting and fun rewards, tarot readings, personal calls, all kinds of things of that nature. This is what I'm going to be doing for a good portion of the rest of my life. And I want to thank you for even indirectly leading me to this point where I can begin to do this work in earnest. Much love to you. Stay safe out there, and don't give up. We can do this. Brenda out.
What the fuck is wrong with this country, nigga? Blow in the trunk, just like an elephant cup that I'm sipping is filled up with melanin. Migrating work, I need a settlement. Never fuck with niggas just like the government. Head in the hood like I'm Trayvon. Rolling up my sleeves cause I'm bare arms. Barstool, Marvel, niggas Capcom. You a double low, we cannot bomb. Mass shooting, crackers shooting from the mass. Wanna take our life, the only thing we have. Hate how we design, we hate what they design. Every fucking day another hate crime. Every other day another Caliban. Black on black violence, racial suicide. 12% we in, how can we repent? Why would we repent if Ronald Reagan lived? Fuck Donald Trump, MAGA either day. Aggressive opinions irrelevant. Magnates and lobbyists steal for the poor for their benefits. Steal from the poor for their benefit. Young man with a developing plan.